Sooner or later, you will encounter a tiny little filth fly that will make you want to pull your hair out, bring you to your knees, and make you cry. Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business. Hey, welcome there to another edition of the Pest Geek podcast. I am Frank Hernandez, your Pest Geek, here every week discussing all things pest. Hey, we're going to be talking about filth flies, fungus gnats, fruit flies, these tiny little critters that will, at one point in time, make you want to pull your hair out. I mean, when you have and you encounter a fruit fly problem, a fungus gnat problem, a forb fly problem for the first time, and you've never dealt with it before, it's going to be just one of those things where you just want to quit. And I have experienced that in the past, and I'm here to tell you it's no fun. It's no fun for you. It's no fun for the client. They're at their wits' end with this, and they're hoping you have a miracle cure. And I'm here to tell you that there is no miracle cure. There is no one-time shot in the arm for dealing with a filth fly problem. Before we get into the show, I want to give a special shout-out to Michelle Martino from Bullseye Pest and Termite. They liked us on Facebook. Thank you so much for following the podcast. Really, really appreciate that. And also, Responsible Pest, Mesa Pest Control from Phoenix, Arizona, is following us on Twitter. Thank you so much, guys, for following us on Twitter. If you are listening and you're on the web, you can find us anywhere by just looking up Pest Geek Podcast, one word. And you can find us on just about every social media site that you use. We're on there. And join us. Join the conversation. Hang out with us. Find out what's going on and contribute. Help somebody else out with some tips and strategies of your own that somebody else might find very useful. Also, if you've got questions, I hope I have answers. You can give us a call. 707-395-7378, 24/7, recorded line. You can leave your questions, your comments, anything that you would want to have on the air. We will gladly put that on the air if it's of use to the rest of the Pest Geek Society. Thank you all, Pest Geeks, for listening. The response is awesome. We're doing so well. I'm so excited. I didn't think this program was ever going to be this successful. I mean, I thought I would have a couple of listeners here and there, and it would be something fun to do that would help a lot of people. But I never expected the response that I'm getting from the show. And I am so encouraged. I am so thankful that I get to do this, that I get to use my time, my talent to help other people out that are struggling and that are finding this useful in some way. So really, really thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that is happening with this show and how successful it's been. I just had no clue that this would even be this successful. So I want to get into filth fly control. I'll tell you a story. I'm going to tell you my horror story because I'm sure if you've tried to do it and you did it for the first time, you have a horror story. And for those out there that have never done it or never come across the problem, you need to be prepared, and you need to prepare the client most of all for what is going to happen and what's going on. The first time I ever came across a filth fly was a forb fly problem. Now, I get a call from, it was a referral from a customer of mine and referred a person who had a clinic. So I get a call, say, hey, I got these little fruit flies in our office, and it's driving everybody insane. It's been going on now for several months, and I need somebody to come in here and take a look at this. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, they got brought in some fruit or something, and they've got a couple little fruit flies in their kitchen, or they got some fruit flies in their little snack room. I get in there, and there's these like little flies all over the place. You're in the waiting room, you're getting attacked. Then I go inside, and I realize that this problem is a nightmare. And the reason it's a nightmare is where the problem is. This is a dialysis clinic. This is not like a doctor's office where you come in and you're getting your something checked out. No, these are patients that are on dialysis. They've already dealing with enough problems in their life. They're dealing with immune systems that are problematic. And this dialysis clinic, first of all, I was more ashamed than anything at them, because this was so neglectful. And it is so typical of what I see down here in South Florida with people who run businesses that care more about their profit than they do care about the customer. And in this case, it's a patient. This is a medical facility. The sad part is it's in a hospital, and they're dealing with this problem. And when I tell you what they've been doing, you will be horrified. I almost turned them in about what was going on here. We're talking about a dialysis clinic that, first of all, the problem in dialysis clinic, if you don't know, if you haven't done a medical facility or dealt with anything like this, dialysis clinics deal with a lot of water, and they deal with a lot of chlorine. So anything you try to do, forget if you're going to get into filth fly problems and think you're going to control it with a chemical, you're kidding yourself. You're never going to do it. It has nothing to do really with chemicals. It has to do with the conditions that enabled the problem to happen in the first place. And the fact that they didn't have and don't have an integrated pest management professional there every week on a regular basis, because this is an independent clinic inside a hospital, and they should have alerted the hospital, first of all, about what was happening, because it's connected, all interconnected. They never did. The place was in such disrepair that there was water. There's these big giant counters where all the plumbing is behind all this particle board and Formica construction. And inside, all these hoses are leaking. There's water behind all that equipment on the floor every single day, leaking out. And I asked him, who's doing the cleaning here? And he says, well, they mop every night. I said, no, you don't understand. You can't mop. This is not about mopping. This needs to be like vacuumed up, dried to the bone, with putting floor fans in here every single night to dry this. And all these hoses need to be repaired. This is ridiculous. We start treating the drains, because all we can do is treat the drains. We're trying to find the sources. All these machines that are in there, all these hoses. There's a room in the back that has like a 500-gallon tank of chlorine, and chlorine is being used. So any product that you put in there is going to get sterilized. It doesn't matter what it is. They have floor drains everywhere. Trying to figure this out. So I said, I need to be in here on a weekly basis. And what they're wanting me is to like spray something. That's always the solution to everybody. Spray something. You need to spray something. I said, you don't understand. You're either dumb as a doorknob or you're very ignorant. You should never be in the medical business at all, whoever that office manager was. I was so insulted. Because you're thinking these people are professionals. They're in the medical field. They should know about these big problems and how to head it off, and they don't. Sadly to say, to my shame, they were Cuban. And it's typical. If you come down to Miami and you're in Miami-Dade County, You don't understand how bad neglect is in restaurants, in hotels, in the things that I get to see, that I've seen on a daily basis, that I've seen in my career, in my past career when I was a food distributor in restaurants, when I used to deliver linen to restaurants, when I now in the pest control business, and what I see. It's pathetic sometimes, the things that I see and how insulted I get by just the neglect, because it has nothing to do with something that happened to you that you couldn't avoid. It was something that you should have known about being a professional in your field. If you're a restaurant owner, and there's a big difference, guys. There's a big difference between a Marriott resort, 5-star resort kitchen, and a mom and pop kitchen. Why? Because these people have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on research, development, working on an integrated pest management program, having integrated pest management programs in place, training for their staff, training for their people. And the average thing that you and I will deal with, we're not the Stereotex of the world. We have to deal with mom and pops whose idea of hygiene and an entomological idea of what hygiene is, it's like night and day. They don't get it. They don't understand it. They've taken the courses that they should have taken, but guess what? Most of those courses don't include pest prevention. It's about food temperature, cleaning, surfaces. They don't understand the buildup of proteins and the residual of proteins on machines and how that is going to eventually affect, people eating in that place. Cleaning is, they clean their restaurant, they clean their facility, they deal with things in the same way they do in their home. And the dynamics are totally different. Totally different. You really, this is why inspectors get so honked off when they go into these places. And they're dealing with these people that don't understand. And they have to put the hammer down. It's not that they're being mean. It's not that they're being, just jerks. It's the fact that they're trying to explain something to somebody that doesn't get it. And I deal with that on a constant basis. With building engineers in buildings that don't understand the whole issue with filth flies, with cleaning drains, things they don't understand. And how do we get the training to them? The information is out there. I mean, university sites are filled with it. We live in the information age. And yet there's so much ignorance in the age of information about your own personal business that you're supposed to be an expert in. And I don't get it. So we're dealing with this fly problem. And I say we need to install lamps. I mean, you got to get this thing dried every single night. The cleaning crew that comes in here needs to understand they're not cleaning a doctor's office that just has paper. This water vacuumed with floor dryers every night, running all night, getting that humidity out of here, getting it all out. The tile, was already coming up in a lot of places because the water just has destroyed it. To start dealing with this problem. Here's the worst part that I heard. After a couple of weeks, I brought the population down, but there's still some there. We can't just get rid of it. We're trying to find all these water sources, and we're dealing with foaming, and the problem is it's all being sterilized by all that bleach water. Everything we put down. Bleach is not going to kill a filth fly problem. It doesn't do it in the drains. It won't. The customers, I've been pouring bleach down the drains. That won't help. And I come in one day and I talk to one of the technicians that is dealing with the patients, And he says, there's something you need to know. I mean, he just brought me to the side and says, they've been fogging here at night because they're desperate. So I go and I talk to the office manager, and I said, have you guys been fogging? They denied it. And I had no choice at that point but to just drop the account. Why? Who do you think they're going to blame when something goes wrong? Who do you think they're going to come after? These are people these are machines. There are needles there. There's plastic equipment. There's stuff, and you're fogging the place. The chairs are all contaminated. The equipment is all contaminated. Everything in that place was contaminated. And they thought nothing of it to go to the supermarket in a medical facility, buy foggers, and put them in. It's no different than what we deal with in a restaurant with an owner that's been trying to take care of their own problem. They'll fog the entire place. Not realizing every single now styrofoam cup, every styrofoam container that's been opened, every piece of plastic spoon, every surface, all the equipment, the soda fountains, the ice maker is now contaminated with a pesticide. I mean, if you're using foggers in a commercial building, I mean, I personally think you ought to be shot. That's just my opinion. People that don't know what they're doing, dealing with things they don't know how to deal with, having no concern and no regard for public health or public safety. And I am astonished of how much of that I see on a daily basis. I just about lose it sometimes when I'm trying to talk to a restaurant owner, because these biggest problems that we find are in restaurants. And I'm explaining this to them, and they're looking at me with this glazed look in their eye going, we don't have time to do all this. We don't, we clean at night, we close up, and by the time we're finished and we close up, everybody wants to go home and everybody's rushing and cleaning. I says, really? That's your excuse? I mean, open up earlier in the morning, get it done. And you see all kinds of these problems. And you're going to run into it if you're dealing with a mom and pop. And you're dealing with a filth fly problem, whether it's a fruit fly. First of all, you need to get a correct identification. Because there's a big difference between a drain gnat, a drain fly, and a fruit fly. And an actual fruit fly, a vinegar fly. There's a big difference between a forib fly. And you're going to have to know which one you're dealing with. And here is the problem. Most of these people, most of mom and pops, most of these small places do not have an integrated pest management program in place. They think that people coming in to sell integrated pest management are just trying to jack up the price by selling services they don't need for a problem they don't have, never had, and it will never have. And that's the idea. We'll never have this problem. Meanwhile, there's gunk building up everywhere. And here comes one of the waitresses, decides to bring a plant that they bought because it would look nice on the counter, and it has fungus gnats in it. It's got some type of fly. And now they've got a serious problem. They don't have any seals on the doors. All the doors on the outside have no seals. I can stick my thumb underneath the door. They won't put sweeps on. The trash can is 20 feet away. It's dirty. Nobody ever cleans out the bin. Nobody ever pressure washes because it belongs to the building and the building manager should do it. But you're the one getting affected by it if you're a restaurant owner. I mean, think about it. Look at all the things that you don't know about that don't pertain to food preparation, but it is your problem and it will become your problem. And all of a sudden you think that by one person coming in every month, every 2 months, or whenever you call them, they're going to be able to solve this problem when it happens. In our business, flies are excluded. We do not include them in our contract. Because most restaurants don't have things in place to prevent fly problems. It's amazing how I take on a new account and says, we don't have a fly problem. They don't want to install fly lamps. And I say, look, you need to install fly lamps. You have flies. Well, we don't have any flies. I'll install a lamp. I'll come back a week later. I'll pull out the glue board, go visit the manager, and say, look at your glue board. There's 15 different species of fly on that board. You tell me you don't have a fly problem? They don't see it because they're so busy in their thing, rushing around all day long. They don't see these little problems. I'll put monitors in the drain. Come back a week later, pull out and says, look at that. There's a filth fly right there on that drain. It's a fungus gnat. You don't have a fly problem. See, until you show it to them, until you prove it to them, they don't believe you. They think you're exaggerating. That you're just being one of these guys that just wants to sell and push product. They don't have time to listen to a training on IPM and how to train their people on IPM. It's a waste of time. And then they call you and they want you to take care of it the next day. And if you get called out on a fly problem, this is not going to go away overnight. You need to, in your contract, in your training, in your presentation, talk to this customer and say, listen, take the customer by the hand. You need to find that source. That source could be behind a refrigerator in one of those pans. How many refrigeration units does a restaurant have, a food facility have, any facility? The floor drains, the bathroom drains. You look at an ice machine, and it's got this sludge from this little water spigot drain inside that's all filled with this sludge that's slimy and black, and it's all over the side of the doors because they don't clean the ice maker out, ever. The back of that pan is just filled with all kinds of water and slimy stuff. The soda fountains. You look underneath those tips of the soda, they never clean out the soda machines. Not really. They clean out the bottom plate and that's it. And then you see that little drain and that hose that drains out. And it's all filled with this black mold, slimy, mushy stuff. The air conditioning units that drain out, all those drains are filled with stuff. Potted plants. There's water sources in plants. You need to check those out. You need to take the customer by the hand and point all these things out to them and say, you see, these are the sources of where these flies are breeding. I had one restaurant, we couldn't find the source. I just went about insane. He didn't want to put the lamps. He just literally spent about 50 grand on building out the restaurant and expanding it, just from one place to the other. And says you need to spend about $500-600 on fly lamps just to catch these things so we can catch them when they come in. Won't seal the doors. The tiles in the kitchen are in disrepair, but the front of the house looks marvelous, and they ignore everything in the back of the house. I said, you're gonna end up with a fly problem that you can't control, and you're gonna call me, and you're gonna tell me, and I'm gonna tell you it's gonna cost you a couple $100 to fix this problem. Mind my words. And all of a sudden, it wasn't 4 weeks later, he had a fruit fly problem. Desperate. Couldn't find the source. We could not find the source. I said, there's something in here. What had happened is there was a floor drain in the kitchen. They had put a piece of equipment over it. They had removed the covers, left the trap in there. They can't reach it because the equipment is over it. The equipment is bolted down to the floor. You can't get your hand in there to pull out the strainer, and it was all full. This took me hours to find this. Hours. to find this, that it was under there, and because I couldn't see the flies coming in or out. And all of a sudden, I was with my flashlight look. I would never think that under a piece of equipment that you can't move, there will be a like 8-inch, tray down there full of food that they hadn't cleaned. And I said, you know what you're going to have to do every single night? You're going to have to stick your hand in there, and you're going to have to pull all that out, and you're going to have to treat it every single night, because this is where your problem is. We found it. We pull it out. I managed to get it out. I had to saw out because there has a piece of pipe that they had left from a drain, from a piece of equipment that was draining into their underground. I had to saw it off to get that thing out. And then we look at it, and it smelled like death. And we move it, and all these flies start popping. We found the source. You got it. Your biggest challenge, your biggest expense, listen to me, is not going to be in a chemical. If you think you're going to go in there 1 hour, 2 hours, you're kidding yourself. This is a thing where it's going to have to be a cooperation between you and that manager, and you put all this in writing, and you say, here's the list of what you have to get done by tomorrow. No ifs, ands, or buts. By tomorrow. See, the difference between a large company and a large chain is you get a company like Ecolab or Steritech that handles these large accounts, and the manager doesn't get something done, you write them up. And then you turn that into your office, and the account rep, if it isn't handled by next time, the account rep calls up the regional manager and says, listen, we got a problem in your store. You have this. We've already told the manager he isn't getting it done. You need to get on his butt and get that done. And guess what? The next call he gets is from a regional manager saying, you need to solve that problem now. And it gets done. With a mom and pop, it's 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and it still isn't done. And they want control. It has to be a cooperative effort. If the client can't cooperate, if it's kind of like the patient who won't cooperate in his own healing, the doctor can't do a thing for him. You have to write it up on the contract. It says all these things are filthy. All these things are full of mold. They're full of slime. It needs to be cleaned out. It needs to be taken apart. You either invest in a steam cleaner and you perform all these services for them and you get all this equipment clean and charge them $500, $600, $700, $800 to get it done, or they get it done, or they go let it be somebody else's problem and walk away. Because you're not going to win. You're going to lose. You're going to get a negative review online because, they charged me and they never took care of our problem. And they're not going to show, obviously, the world, the contract you gave them that says you have to fix all these problems. So if the customer doesn't agree in writing in the contract to fix all those problems, you simply don't agree to take on that kind of work. It's a nightmare. I get it in apartment buildings where they got a fungus gnat in the apartment building. You walk outside, you look at the dumpster rooms, and these dumpster rooms have never been cleaned. I mean, you can literally scrape 2 feet of gunk from that floor. And I see the flies everywhere. I said, this is going to be a problem soon. They need to get this cleaned. Every month, they should be pulling that dumpster out, pressure cleaning that entire, cave, and getting it clean and spraying it with some type of product like Nibor, and spraying that whole entire area with Nibor to get that under control. If you're in an apartment building, it's a whole lot harder because, are they going to pay you 2 or 3 hours worth of labor to clean out all those drains? When you stick, I got the little thing called a zip it, and I'll stick it down the drain, that little zip it, and I'll pull it out, and there comes out a wad of hair with all kinds of slime. God knows what is in there. I do the same thing to the bathtub, and I just pull it out and I said, this is your problem right here. All this filth. Underneath the toilet bowl. I mean, it's like nobody cleans underneath the toilet bowl. It's ridiculous. And I'm thinking, this is your problem. So are you going to pay me for 3 hours of work at $125 an hour that my company needs to charge to get this done for you? Or are you going to get this done? Drain brushes to clean out the drains. I mean, if you got a restaurant that has floor drains and they're dirty, you need to be on a weekly basis treating those drains until they get clean. If you clean them out with a brush, you get 90% of that gunk out. Then you can use a foam and foam it in, and get that drain. Start getting that drain clean. Then on a regular basis, on every visit, we treat the drains. Every single visit in restaurants, because that's going to be a problem. I install monitors in those drains to make sure that I don't have my monitors that are all over that restaurant are going to tell me, because I find flies in there and I already know. My fly lamps are going to tell me what I have. You analyze those boards. When you pull them out, don't just throw them away. Man, do you have a fungus net in there? Or these, like, I find dragonflies. I find 100 different species of flies in there. Analyze those boards. What's in there? That's going to tell you what you have in that restaurant. So in a home, it's basically you take out that piece that, on the top, and if you put a brush down in there and you brush that out, you'll find all kinds of gunk in there. Then you can use Hotspot. By the way, I love the products from Rockwell Labs. They make amazing products. The Invade Hotspot, if you don't have a foamer and you don't do it and this is your first time, don't invest money in $200-$300 in a foamer if you're not going to do this all the time. You get the Hotspot. You can treat it. Treat all those machines in the back. Treat all those areas. Or you can use a product like Nibor D to treat behind those equipment. Treat those pans. Because if they're not going to get it clean, you got to do something. If you go in the kitchen and you see behind the stove or behind the fryers, there's like 1 million pieces of fries back there. Or if you're in a Hispanic restaurant or a Mexican restaurant, there's limes, and those limes have rotted, and they pushed them back into those corners where you're trying to clean, and they're pushing it with the mop. They're not getting out. I got a floor scraper that I attach to my pole for my de-webbing, and I just take my pole, my scraper, scrape all that out of there really quick, get it all out, and then just hit it with Nibor D. By the way, the one that turned me on to Nibor D was Brian from the Arthro podcast, because I had never used it, and I've been using it, and it's an amazing product to do that kind of work. So, check out their podcast, because it's really, really cool. I mean, they got a lot of tips on there. And if you go ahead and the difference between a drain gel and the drain foam is drain foam is going to clean a lot quicker. So if you do drain gel, understand you're going to be spending weeks and months before that drain gel actually cleans out that pipe. It's very slow acting. You got to apply it at night. So what I do is I tell them, look, you're going to mop this entire place tonight with drain gel. And I give them a bottle of drain gel. And I said, here, mop it, and then you're going to pour a gallon of whatever that water is. You're going to pour it down the drain with a drain gel. Are the sinks being drained out? Those traps in those sinks, they're full of gunk. You need to pull that out. You need to get a brush that you stick down into those drains and brush those things out. They're not going to do that, guys. They don't have the equipment. Invest in a couple of drain brushes. There's a floor drain brush that's called the DB001 by drain-net.com. I've got a link to it on the website. 3-foot brush that has a cover on it. You step on it and you just push it down the drain pipes. You get them all clean very quickly in a couple of strokes. Rinse them off. You're good to go. There's a couple of drain pipe brushes you can order. You stick them down those drains, get that sludge out of there, treat it with drain gel. Because if you wait for the drain gel to work by itself, it's going to take forever. You got to do something. You can't just depend on chemical. Chemical is not the solution for everything. Make sure those doors are sealed. Make sure the doors aren't being left open. That's the biggest challenge I have. They don't have air curtains. They don't have positive pressure cabins. When you walk in a certain restaurant, they got a dual entry and they have positive pressure. A lot of these places don't have any of that. So flies are going to be coming in all the time. The doors need to be closed. There needs to be seals on all those doors. Strips, weather strips in the bottom. This is a common problem. And it's neglectful. A lot of it is ignorance. A lot of it is just they won't do it. They don't want to spend the money. And they're going to live with the problem. Because you're not a miracle worker. We depend on science. And we depend on the hygiene to control the problem. So I think that if you're looking at filth flies, it's a nightmare. I think you need to be prepared. I think you need to have a contract in place to deal with it. I think you need to do a training. And if they're not getting a buy-in, when you do all this, walk away. Because you're gonna die. This is hours of doing work and follow-ups and visits. You'll invest, before you're done in this, you'll invest 6, 7, 8 hours of labor before you're done with this problem, or at least to a point. There's another great little product I love using for actual fruit flies and vinegar flies. It's called Natural Catch Plus. It's a great product. It works great. I put 2 or 3, 4 of these in a place where there's fruit flies, and it helps catch them. Fly lights, I get sometimes the little portable ones. Sometimes we'll use the nice big fly lights and get it installed. And you'll put these, if they got a little front counter somewhere and they don't got a lot of space, you can plug one of these little lights in. They're like $35 that you can get them. You can get them from any one of your suppliers. And those are the things. But inspection, monitoring, monitors, looking, water sources, anything that you can think of that has something in it will probably be a breeding place. And that's what you need to look forward to. Hey, folks, I'm having a blast. I hope you're having a blast. It's going to be amazing. It's an amazing year. Like the Trump says, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be big. So, hey, have fun. Enjoy yourselves. Be safe. Do what's right. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.